Welcome to the simplicity of happiness when more is too much. This podcast offers tips and techniques for a better life.
And before we start with another episode of the Simplicity of Happiness podcast, I would like to remind you that you can find out all about me and my thoughts on simplicityofhappiness.com, as well as Patreon, where I am providing extra content for all of you who support me and the education of children in Africa. And now relax and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Simplicity of Happiness. And today I'm honored to talk to the eye of the hypnotic storm, Mike Mandel in Toronto. Hello.
Hello, Florian. Great to see you again, my friend. This is nice to be with you. You're in the cold. We're in the cold. We got the snow coming down here in the Great White North, and
yes,
there you go.
And somebody around me is thinking about applying for a job in Canada. So I might need to talk to you again because she wants to go even further into the snow. But let's talk about this another time.
Wow.
The last time that I think we talked about you and hypnosis was together with a friend. We were sitting outside, minus degrees, so freezing. And we were sitting in a hot tub and listening to, how do you call it? An hypnotic travel called Journey to the Castle.
Yes.
And for everybody who has not listened to this yet, I just talked to Mike about it, and I'm going to link the Journey to the Castle because you can get it for free. I think you just have to leave the email address.
Yeah.
What do you think is so special about the Journey to the Castle?
You know, Florian, it's interesting because I started putting out hypnosis digital products back in the mid-1990s, and they were initially done on a computer with software at somebody's house and a fairly average microphone. Then I went back and revisited them and did them at Crunch Recording Studios in Toronto, which is extremely high-end, and had a sound engineer do them. We worked with the Lucasfilm Sound Lab and got a whole bunch of great sound effects. So these were 3 tracks to take people on hypnotic journeys. But in each one of them, I would refer to this castle up on a hill they could see in this trance. But that's not for today. That's for other trances. And so they would think it would be on one of the other of the 3, but they never get to go there. I got people complaining from all over the world. And this is when it was a cassette and then a CD and then finally a download. But I got a call from Till Davy, who's a Toronto pediatrician from Vienna, wonderful man, great doctor. And he left a message for me. I was on the road teaching, and I got to my phone, and he just said, Mike, I want to go to the castle. Why can't I go to the castle? I said, one day I'll do it. Well, 25 years later, I said, I'm going to do it. And I've got 25 years more hypnotic experience than the first time I did those recordings. And so I made Journey to the Castle. But what makes it different is the other 3 were for very specific purposes, either self-hypnosis for stress relief, peak performance, or memory power, enhancing memory. And this one is something that is open-ended. You can use it for anything you want, or you can let your unconscious mind determine what the use will be that will be ecological and useful. And this takes my old stuff to a whole new world. I listen to Journey to the Castle myself, and typically zone out in the middle, get amnesia for what I was listening for. It's pretty wild. So that's how it all happened.
Talking of zoning out, what is the most memorable hypnosis experience that you had for yourself?
Oh man, for myself, probably pain management. I had an event in Winnipeg in the 1970s and slipped. And this is purely for myself, not helping anyone else. But I slipped getting ready for the gig in the bathtub, landed on the side of it in this hotel room, and I was paralyzed. It was a long time before anybody even knew I was in trouble, and they found me and they took me to by ambulance to the hospital. And I zoned out in the ambulance, put myself in a powerful trance I think they thought I was unconscious. Like, but that was the only way I could manage the pain. But I found that was quite manageable. I'm really good with pain management with myself. I'm good at going into trance very quickly. But it's no surprise because hypnosis has been well documented for pain management for many, many, centuries even. It's something it excels at.
You're not going to talk about testicles again, are you?
No, I want to cut the cyst out. No, I won't talk about that one. Doing self-surgery is not recommended. But hypnosis always amazes me. It has since 1965 when I started. And now that I'm approaching a couple of years, I'll be 70. And I'm astounded how quickly the time has gone. But I've been doing hypnosis full-time for well over 50 years. Well, no, full-time since 1975. But prior to that, for 10 years. And that's why I keep on my desk here the wizard statue. So I always joke with my students and say I'm a 5,000-year-old wizard. I think some of them believe it.
Yeah, maybe you are.
Yes.
And
this is Mike, the pièce de résistance, though.
No, come on.
This is the brick from Milton Erickson's house. I mean, it's just one of my prized possessions. So it's right up there with my Angus Young AC/DC guitar. But
Mike, people who know you, people who studied with you, and people who have been hypnotized by you are amazed. And I enjoyed that training in Toronto so much because, just from my very personal perspective, I think I share your sense of humor.
I think you do too.
You are a very quick thinker, and sometimes some people might lower the speed of the podcast when you are talking, but I love it, and the way that you are jumping from one point to the other is exactly the same way that I'm thinking. So I'm never lost.
You're following me.
Yes.
And Chris is always trying to get me to slow down. Well, not so much now. He knows he can't. But he gave me one of my best compliments ever. Chris Thompson, my business partner, called me the brilliant 5-year-old he works with.
And now my question, what do you think makes you special? Why do you, I'm specifying this a little bit. Why do you have such a sensitive feeling about the state that the person is in?
Well, I can't deny that I do. You probably heard me say I was on a plane going to Boston to do a keynote for a corporation, and the woman next to me was an elderly Irish American woman. She's actually Irish, in her early 80s, I guess. And I was sitting next to her, and we got talking, and she told me she was looking forward to Boston, but concerned about it because she used to go there with her husband, and he'd been dead for 3 years now, and she hadn't been back, and she was afraid it was going to open all these sad memories. And I began just talking to her in hypnotic language. And we got off the plane at the other end, and she said, "You're such a lovely young man. Can I pray for you?" I said, "Sure." So she took my hands, and this Catholic woman prayed for this Presbyterian elder, which was weird. And then she said, "Something's happened, son. I don't know what it is, but I'm looking forward to going to Boston now." And I said, "That's right." Now, what I've done is I've built rapport with her, and I've intersected her, and I've given her some storylines on that are going to deal with her problem. The reason I can do this, Florian, is both a hell of a lot of practice. Literally on stage alone, I've hypnotized in excess of 100,000 people. It's 5,000 shows. But you must realize, so it doesn't sound like I'm blowing my own horn here, I'm useless at so many other things, as my wife will be more than happy to list for you. I have no mechanical ability. I can't put in a screw without almost taking my head off with the screwdriver. If I have to swim more than 100 feet, I'll probably drown. I'm a pretty good martial artist and a few other things, but I'm not good at a lot of stuff. And I think, we used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and you put your points in your areas, charisma and sword fighting and all. I think most of my points are in hypnosis. And it's just something that has always been pretty easy for me. One of my students is a psychiatrist. He used to be head of psychiatry at Northfield General Hospital. And he says he thinks I'm a hypnosis savant. And I said, "Really?" He said, "Oh, I think so." He said, you have the science." I said, "Well, I'm not awkward and weird, though." And he said, well, you're weird enough. I said, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know. But honestly, I'm good at hypnosis, but I'm really shit at a lot of other stuff. My wife would say most other things.
Yeah. Well, one time I want to see your wife before I talk to her. Most important, talk to her. Well, before I'll ask you about one more thing about rapport. Wait, it's your left arm, right? Does it say freedom?
Yeah, Horia. Yeah, freedom.
Why is it Arabic?
Because I've got Japanese on the right arm, which is jujitsu. I've got New Testament Greek on my back. I love language. Language fascinates me. I mean, I love being in a cab with I had a really good language teacher. Barry Farber spoke 26 languages fluently, and everything from, Korean to anything you can imagine, Finnish, Estonian, Serbo-Croatian. And he taught us not language, but how to learn language. And I found that fascinating. Being a hypnotist, words are my tools, right? And I remember the key things. I was in a cab in Ottawa, and it was a black cab driver. We got talking, and he had a strong accent, French accent. And I thought he was from Montreal. And he said, no, man, I'm from Haiti. I said, ça passe, papa. He almost crashed the cab. He said, no white man knows that. It's Haitian Creole. And it basically means, how's it going, bro? Ça passe, papa. But the better one was my niece, who's a naturopathic doctor. I took her out for lunch to a Chinese restaurant. And she's super smart. We took an IQ test, and she always brags because she was 1 point smarter than me. Will never let me forget it. He says, I'm smarter than you, Uncle Mike. And I said, yeah, but I could still beat you in the octagon. My wife says, you can't threaten your niece with physical violence. I said, well, she's making fun of me. So we went to a Chinese restaurant, and I want to show off for my niece. So we didn't have the chopsticks, and the waitress was coming over, and I said, Kwaizu, which is Mandarin for chopsticks. And she said something. I didn't hear what she said. So I switched to Cantonese. I said, Fazi. Fazi is chopsticks in Cantonese. And she said something else. And I said, which means I can only speak a bit of Chinese. And she said, oh, sir, I'm sorry, I'm Japanese. I said, and she said, oh, konnichiwa. You're just fantastic. You got to realize, Florian, at that moment, I've used up all my Chinese and all my Japanese. It's all gone. But boy, does it ever build a rapport bridge. If you can speak a few languages in someone's native language, people appreciate you making the effort.
Taking into account that most of the listeners are not hypnotists themselves, what is the one thing they should know about rapport, and how can they use it?
Oh, wonderful question. Rapport is a sense.
Thank you.
Wonderful question. You've opened a tremendous topic here, one of my favorites. Rapport is an amazing thing. We know when we have it with someone, we interact with them well, conversation flows well, nobody's looking at their watch to see if it's time to go. And we see rapport as hypnotists as a psychodynamic loop, where the person's behavior is eliciting a response in me that is then causing a communication to go forth that elicits a response in them. And when we are in rapport with someone, and I'm using the English word rapport, which comes from the French word rapport, and when we're in rapport with someone,
well, just use the German one.
Oh, which one's the German one?
Rapport.
I'll write it down. I've added it to the humor. So when we're in rapport with someone, we have a bridge built between them and between us. And the basic idea is we appear to be similar to them, and we enter their model of the world. So the old NLP methods of rapport were you mirror the person's body language, you mirror their gestures. So if they gesture like this, you gesture the same way, and not trying to copy them at the exact moment. And you use the same predicates of speech. So if they're saying, do you see what I mean? How does that look? You don't say, well, I feel great, and switch to the wrong system. You breathe in sync. You can tap when they breathe out of their threshold of awareness. But all of these things create the impression that we are similar because we all trust people who seem like us. We like people who are like us. And, a few blocks from my house, actually a couple of miles, is a gangy area. You'll see the gangsters on the corner in the summer. They're doing all this fronting and stuff. And you know who the leader is right away. He's the one who's doing all the gestures. And the others are the ones copying him. They're in rapport with him. Mm-hmm. And that method is a good one. You can match and mirror people and use the predicates of speech and their vocal rate. If they're speaking slowly, you don't want to talk a mile a minute, you'll break rapport with them. And one of the first times I used this with great success was there was a company in Canada that used to rent video cassettes. Remember the video cassette stores? It was Jumbo Video. And what this company hired me to come in and do a keynote for them. And I came in with two of my agents, and we went to the meeting, and they were very proper. My agents, one man and one woman. We sat at the table with the jumbo video experts and head honchos. The main guy was at the head of the table, and he's Scottish, strong Scottish accent. He's in blue jeans. Everybody else, all his crew are rigid and suits and sitting like perfectly, totally intimidated by him. So my agents were intimidated by him, and I did the opposite. I sat like he sat, put my knee up like him, sat back like I didn't give a toss, did his gestures and everything. At the end, they're looking at me like, shut up straight, shut up. They're stressed by this. And at the end of the meeting, he says, I think we're going to hire you. I like what you say. So he hires me. And after the meeting, I did a talk for them. And then he realized after the talk, a few weeks later, he said, you did all this on me. I said, that's right. Now, I built a bridge where I seemed like him. So of course he liked it. Any of your listeners and viewers can do this, but here's a better thing. Here's the gift. John Grinder's ultimate rapport secret. John Grinder, one of my mentors, co-founder of neurolinguistic programming, brilliant linguist, amazing psychologist. He said, you can do all of that. You can match and mirror and talk and pace and all the things I did. He said, or there's a shortcut that's just as effective. He said, simply pretend congruently with your whole being that the person you want rapport with is the most fascinating, interesting, important human being in the world, and keep pretending that as you interact. And when you do, the mirror neurons in your brain will take care of the rest. And here's the first time I did it. I had a keynote for Canada Border Services. And so I was speaking in Cornwall, Ontario, which is about a 6-hour drive. So I took the train and they sent me a nice VO1 first class ticket, rode out there. And after my event, I had 3 hours to kill. So I went to the cafeteria. It was held at St. Clair College, I believe it was. And I get very antisocial when I'm working a lot. I go to Enneagram 5. I just want to be left alone. And I sat in the corner of the cafeteria, brought some books with me. I'm happy when I got books, set them up on the table, opened a book, and a guy came over and he did one of these things where as he's sitting down, he said, do you mind if I join you? And now he's already there. What am I going to say? Yeah, I mind, get out of here. I can't be a jerk to him. He worked for Canada Border Services. Well, I can, but it wouldn't be a good idea. So he was with Canada Border Services. And I thought, okay, he's going to sit and talk to me now. I have to leave here in 2.5 hours. I've got a cab coming to take me to the train station. I'm going to do John Grinder's rapport secret. So I pretended that this man was the most fascinating, important human being I'd ever met. And Florian, that 2-hour conversation went by in a blink. He was fascinating. His job was he rappelled on Russian trawlers off the coast of Western Canada, checking for fishing violations and contraband. And he had fascinating stories of his time in the helicopters and the storms and the things they'd gone through. And I had to go to get my train. And I stood up and he stood up and he said, thank you so much for your kindness in taking the time to talk to me. And I said, no, bro. I said, thank you. I said, this was one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had in my life. And you know what? It really was. Everybody has something to offer. Sometimes we have to dig to find that gem that's hidden. But if we take the time and pretend they're fascinating and pretend they're interesting and don't interrupt them, we can uncover things that are absolutely astounding. So get your listeners and viewers to do that. It's a great gift that John Grinder gave me.
And while you're doing that, don't you give up a piece of your own personality? I mean,
Yes, yeah.
Let's say a group of friends or business partners, and I have a point to make. I want them to listen to me. And as soon as I'm using these techniques, I have these wonderful conversations and I'm totally amazed by the other people. But how do I make my point in that?
When you have that degree of rapport, you're just going to listen for a gap. And because the rapport is two ways, they'll be in rapport with you too. They will listen just as readily to you. So it's a complete conversational loop between the two of you. And when in doubt, build rapport with the most important or powerful person in the room. And that works really, like in the boardroom, although I would have taken a shortcut now and done Grinder's method instead. But this has served me extremely well over the years. And when I was seeing clients, when I was a full-time therapist in the 1990s and had an office right on the beach in Toronto, which is fantastic. And I'd switch into Rapport with them and immediately cut through all the crap and be able to do some really interesting work really quickly, not because I'm brilliant, but because I've had amazing teachers. I've had the
And
best
you are
teachers
brilliant.
in the
And
world.
you're brilliant, of course, a little bit. What there was one thing, and I think in one of the last couple of podcast episodes, when you said that often people are telling a story and then you are self-referencing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I love
really,
to, and
so
now I'm
tempting
going
to
to do that because I love self-referencing. So very often people tell something and say, "Oh, this reminds me of," and this technique that you just presented, it helps me a lot to just shut up.
Yeah,
and listen.
that's the same with me. And it can sound narcissistic, but there's a way of self-referencing that isn't narcissistic. And that's what I'm convinced I was doing. It was my wife who was the one who complained. And we'd been married, 39 years. I still call her my first wife to keep her on her toes. But she's smart as really, really smart. But she said, it sounds like you're just looking for a chance to talk about yourself. I said, honey, I understand that it sounds like that. Here's what it actually is. When you tell me something that's important to you, the only experience I can draw from is my own experience. To verify it or to add to it or something. I said, it's my way of adding to the conversation, but I've learned not to do it quite so much as I used to.
Yeah, maybe that helps sometimes. When there's one thing about rapport that I'm still thinking about. There's one technique that you teach, hypnotizing somebody across the room.
Oh yes.
And you say, and then you I'm not sure how much I can go into detail, but you're talking about this illuminations that you focus on.
Yeah. I'll explain it if you want me to. I don't know how far you want to go. I don't mind. The triple bind is a very, very interesting situation. It comes initially out of the double bind, which Erickson, the greatest hypnotist who ever lived. My wife asked me 2 nights ago over supper. Sunday night, I started fasting. I'm doing a 2 or 3 day fast right now. And just to stay toned and healthy and everything. And I do it once a week. And my wife said to me over supper, the last meal I had then, not the last one of my life, I hope. But she said, I'll ask you a question. Who's a better hypnotist, you or Milton Erickson? And I said, Milton Erickson. I said, I don't have to think about it. She said, right answer. I said, there'll only be one Erickson. But he used double binds brilliantly. He would offer only 2 alternatives. Would you rather A or B? And clever salespeople do this. Would you rather sign the contract now or should we sign it after lunch? Well, you don't even look at the third option. Maybe not sign it at all. Maybe think about it for 2 weeks. We tend to only look at the 2 examples that are in front of us. Now, a triple bind takes it one further. And I began using a triple bind for hypnotic inductions. And the very first time Chris Thompson and I presented at HypnoThoughts Live, which is the biggest hypnosis convention in the world in Las Vegas, it's just a blast, 1,000 hypnotists of every kind you can imagine for days on end and 115-degree heat. And it's just fantastic. So I was asked to do a demo. And there was a man in the audience, and he was probably 8 or 10 rows back. And I did a thing called intersection. I intersected him. And the way you do that, I had to deconstruct it to figure out how I did it because I wasn't sure. Now I know what I do. When I look at the person, I imagine that I'm sending out, Dr. Octopus, Spider-Man's enemy with the octopus hands. I imagine I'm sending these octopus tendrils out, but they're light. Now, I don't for 1 minute mean there's anything happening here, paranormal or pseudoscientific. This is just how I imagine it. I was doing it unconsciously. So I send these tendrils, and these are loving. They're not scary. They touch the person and resonate and vibrate and get bright. And as they're getting bright, I'm looking at the person, and I start to get tunnel vision. So all I'm really seeing is their immediate face. I'm holding on to this image. And then I say to them the triple bind question. What sensation are you noticing right now? That sets it up. And because I'm fixating them with my eyes, it's like some sort of loop happens. So they'll answer me. They'll say something like confused or warm or flushed in the face or something like. So they might say, let's say they say warm. Now I offer it back to them, which increases the loop. So I'll say, that's right, warm. And that feeling of warm, here's the double bind. Is it moving? Is it intensifying, or are you more aware of it? So that's moving, intensifying, more aware. M-I-M-A, Mima, that's how you remember it. But you have to say it fairly quickly. You've got to go slowly enough to keep the rapport. But if you go too slowly, they'll interrupt while you're saying it. Is it moving? No. So you gotta, is it moving, or is it intensifying, or are you more aware of it? So they go, it's moving. So I'll say, that's right, it's moving. And is it now moving or intensifying, or are you more aware? And I'll do like 2 or 3 of these. And they're starting to lock onto me at that point. And they answer again. And then I just say, eyes closed now. And they go,
yeah, wait. I have to stay awake, or you have to do the show on your own. And well, I love this. I did this multiple times. Imagine a dark African night sitting in Zanzibar under palm trees. The guests at the lodge asking me, "Oh, what did you do in Canada?" Well, what do you feel today?
Good question.
And it helps me. I'm not imagine these octopus fingers, but it's more like a light going from me to them. But this is intensifying it so much. Why do you think that is the case? Because it's working like eyes closed now, and well, and that.
and it's interesting. I don't know. It's I'm trained in different energetic modalities. I did EFT, some thought field therapy, not much. Tapas acupressure technique. Larry Nim's Be Set Free Fast. We were the first people ever trained by him. First Canadians ever certified in it. A lot of different things. And there is some sort of energetic exchange that takes place between us, but I don't pretend to know what it is. I did Professor Benjamin Schumacher's college level course in quantum mechanics. And I think there is something happening here that we cannot yet explain completely. But you're right. And the way you're describing it, the way you do it, that is equally valid. It's the same thing. I mean, as soon as you're telling me, I'm going, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And what happens is we get some sort of interesting energetic loop here, where the guy I demonstrated this on, I could tell you, his name was Richard White. He's in my academy. He's a full-time social worker therapist in the US, very nice man. And afterwards, I went up to him and I said, how's your sore shoulder now? And he went, it's a lot better, but how did you even know about it? And I said, I calibrated it. As soon as I locked with you, I could tell you had a sore shoulder. I didn't feel it. I didn't have any empathy, but I was just aware of it. And I thought this might fix it, but there was no suggestion given. I think it really freaked him out.
I believe.
And he did it, not me. I'm just creating the loop. I never fixed anybody's problems ever. All I did was build a psychodynamic loop with them, make friends with their own unconscious mind, and let their unconscious mind fix things.
Mm-hmm. If somebody listening to this wants to become more aware of their own unconscious mind, what is your suggestion?
Take a free
What
ride.
Is the shortcut? What is
Take
the
a free
easy
ride
way?
at MMHA, Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. People can test drive it for free and have a mind-blowing experience, have access to the entire thing, the hundreds of videos, the guest trainers, the live webinars,
well,
everything is there.
I found it, well, this is how I met you, because I listened to the podcast and I thought you are just two guys talking a lot of nonsense. So I didn't listen to it for a year. Then I came back to it and then I got the jokes and then I kept listening to it. And then I signed up for the online academy. And then I thought, it was too much for me. I was absolutely unexperienced. I did NLP, so I knew a lot of the language that you were using.
Yeah.
But I did not know how to start. There was so much, and I understood what you were saying, but I was too afraid to test it with somebody because I thought I have no idea what I'm doing. So I didn't really test it on myself either. I looked through it more like an academic perspective.
then I traveled to Canada, and I absolutely loved it. I felt like coming home.
Oh, that's fabulous. When did you come out, Florian? Was it 3 years ago now?
Well, it will be 4 years in May.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's gone in a blink. And in this time, since we started teaching, first at U of T, 2 different locations, and then we had a brand new setting, then COVID hit, and we lost that. It was right across from Toronto City Hall, beautiful 19th floor view, great training center, but it's all gone under now. And but that place where we met, right at U of T, University of Toronto, is just such a nice setting. It's in a nice area of the city. And we really did attract some amazing people. We had one guy drove from San Francisco to Toronto. I think it took him 2 days to private. We've now trained, I think, 6 psychiatrists, 2 from Singapore, 1 from France, all over the place. And it's been such a blessing. And then to get people with no previous experience, not even your NLP experience, and come in and then start replicating excellence when they leave.
Yeah, that was so for anybody listening, if you are thinking about well, whenever we have no pandemic anymore, to travel to Toronto, it came to me at ease, and I had throughout the whole week, I had no. Do you remember that I came there in shorts and flip flops because I was coming from Zanzibar, and it was freezing degrees, and I didn't expect it. So the second day, I had to go and shop for some pants and some shoes and a pullover, I guess.
You're not the first.
Well, but I didn't. I never had the feeling that something is missing, or that I didn't understand it. So and for some reason, maybe it's because of the humor or the speed of the talking and thinking, whatever you explained, I can replicate a lot of this word by word, because this wasn't. Sometimes people are just talking so much nonsense around that the bits of truth is hidden. But what I learned there was, okay, I got this, makes sense. And I just copy pasted it.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful. It got in so fast.
Yeah, I have no idea why. Maybe it's because I'm brilliant as well.
Well, you are brilliant. I can tell you why. I thank 2 people specifically. One was Donald Thane, who was my grade 6 teacher, who gave me a love for learning after I'd had a catastrophic near breakdown in public school with an evil teacher. And Donald Thane got me interested in learning again. And he's since passed away. Wonderful teacher. And the other reason is my teaching style. I've modeled John Grinder. And we brought him to Toronto twice. And I spent quite a bit of time in his presence and had lunch and dinner with him And I've modeled his teaching style, his presenting style is second to none. I mean, it's just, you want to learn stuff. Oh my goodness, it's just downloading into your freaking brain all the time. But it's the other thing you said is the humor, and that's a really important point. It was Richard Bandler who said humor unlocks the model. So the co-founder of NLP saying, humor breaks up the problem. It makes it hard for the problem to stay. And mocking people's problems, like somebody comes in, and I've got this and this and this. You say, that's easy. Why didn't you get rid of it before? What? And then you have a big laugh about it. It makes it easier.
Back to the question, what could be an easy way to experience your own unconscious mind?
Your own unconscious mind? Let someone else do it for you. And the best way is what you already said, we talked about earlier, listening to Journey to the Castle. That will activate and awaken the unconscious mind of the listener. There is so much hidden in that. I'm currently mentoring a 17-year-old kid online. A friend of mine asked him to help him. The kid's very smart in hypnosis. He's not genius level, but he's good, even at his age. He's figured a lot out. So I meet with him every couple of weeks. We meet on Zoom, and I just talk to him for half an hour. And the first time, I'd spent most of my time just getting him to and listen. He can be very ADD about it. But I say, look, I charge a huge amount of money to corporations for my time. You would not be able to afford me, so stop talking and let me give you the information. But he took it very well. But when I did Journey to the Castle, he said, he was going to deconstruct it and take it all apart and show me it's not going to happen. I've got amazing first-rate hypnotists with years of experience who've not been able to deconstruct it because it's designed to protect itself. It's got stuff in it that if you try to figure it out, feeds back on itself and undoes what you're doing. And this, my friend, is only the beginning, because I'm currently writing the prequel to it, which is Cydonia. And we're going to release this probably next month. I'm hoping we can get it out by within a month. And Cydonia is going to be Journey to the Castle on steroids. It's going to be almost too much.
What does it mean?
Cydonia, Cydonia is actually an area on Mars. And it's where the supposed face on Mars is, and the pyramid structures that look like there's a lost civilization on Mars. And I started thinking, what would happen if some scientists like Elon Musk were able to use nuclear weapons to liberate the atmosphere that's locked in the ground on Mars? And then what if they use something that was low yield nuclear, like neutron bombs that don't destroy the pyramids in the face, and someone was able to open a portal and change things there? So you know more about it than anybody now.
Well, until I publish this. Mike, what could a person like me do for you?
Stimulate my curiosity. It's always the same. I'm interested in people who are interested in learning. I'm interested in people who are confident and who recognize their own limitations. One of the best gifts for me was recognizing my limitations, because one of the hardest things for me was, and this is an indirect answer, Florian, it's somewhat circumlocutory, but it is indeed an answer. When I began doing hypnosis in 1975, I had an enormous ego. I had to have all the doors in my houses cut like keyholes to get my head through. I used to rent my head out as a weather balloon in my spare time to make extra money. I mean, it was awful. Ego was off the scale. And I was just trumpeting how brilliant I was all the time. I look back now and realize how pathetic so much of my technique was. I had the Dunning-Kruger effect, where someone learns in a Venn diagram this much information, a small circle, but they don't realize that that is not the entirety of the subject. The subject is this big. So they learn this and think they know everything, which is what I did for years. And then I began to see all this other stuff outside it, Milton Erickson and his work, and realized, oh, now all of a sudden I've got the imposter syndrome happening, where I feel like I'm not really an expert at all and shouldn't be telling anyone about anything, so I've got a clue. Now I see that, okay, I know this much, but there's this. But if you push past that, then you get to real mastery, because at that point you realize you are indeed an expert, but there's no longer any baggage with it, because you don't. The best way I heard it put was the late drummer from Rush, Neil Peart. He said, what is a master but a student who keeps seeking mastery, something like that. I mean, it was just a wonderful, but a master student, and there's the guy who was arguably the greatest rock drummer of all time, but he still saw himself as a student. And when I found that out, bro, I can't remember who I heard it from, but it was liberating. I'm going to take one of these out so we can keep charging. You can still use one, Chris told me. But yeah, it was liberating. I don't mean for one moment that I don't have an ego. But you look at someone like Freddie Jacquin, who's one of the most skilled hypnotists in the world, or Anthony Jacquin, who's absolutely brilliant, and they're personal friends of mine. And they put the ego aside, and just amazing. I really think the best in any field, what I've learned from them, from all kinds of people, is when you can let go of your own issues to a large degree. Good God knows I'm not there. Please don't think for a moment I'm saying I've arrived. I haven't. But I'm a lot better than I was 10 years ago, or last year, and I hope last week, thank God. Everything gets easier, because we're not contending with having to wear this mask and be something. We can be, for a large degree, authentic. And it doesn't matter to me if Freddie Jacquin's a better hypnotist or David Snyder's a better NLP teacher. It doesn't matter at all, because we're all sort of aligned and doing the same stuff, and hopefully changing the world one person at a time. So that's what I can learn from someone like you. When I talk to you, you trigger my curiosity, and you trigger my desire to want to be better at everything I do, including a better friend, a better communicator, All of the above.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing about learning for me is, well, there was a time when I thought, okay, I'm just going to learn it all, and then I can tell the world. But what happened is, the more I learn, the more I discover that I don't know yet and don't understand. So the more I learn, the stupider I felt, and that led to something, or to a behavior of mine, that I was not brave enough to put my word out there, because I knew how much I don't know. So I thought, who is even interested in that?
So interesting, because and then we doubt ourselves. And you know, as a forensic hypnotist, I worked on a lot of major crimes. I've never sought them; they've come to me. And I worked on I've been consulted on 3 murder cases, sex offenses, and poisoning, armed robberies, like everything. And not a lot of them, probably less than a dozen cases all told. But I've never had to give testimony in court. And the reason why is, a good forensic hypnotist, according to Hibbert and Worrell, who wrote the book on it, should never give testimony in court. We shouldn't need to. We're looking for, here's your metaphor. We're looking for something in hypnosis that can provide corroborative physical evidence that they can then bring to court. That's what they bring to court, the physical evidence, the details, the facts, not what comes out in hypnosis. But the hypnosis can be the catalyst for that, if that makes any sense. But despite the fact of never having given testimony in court, the interesting thing is, to qualify as an expert in North America, in a courtroom, so you can speak as an expert, the only qualification is you must know more about the subject than the judge and the jury. That's it. So you, with your background in NLP, trained in hypnosis, you could come to Canada or go to New York City and give testimony as an expert hypnotist in court. So when you tell people that, they realize they don't need the imposter syndrome. They are good enough. They're good enough to do all kinds of things.
I have 2 questions left. Now, we don't really meet on a weekly basis, the 2 of us. But you saw me a while back in Canada. We had a couple of phone calls, and today we are here. What would you like me to do?
What I'd like to do, well, let me put this earphone back and we'll see if we get better sound now. I'm going to swap them around. What I would like you to do, Florian, is accept this metaphor. I think the best thing you can do.
No, wait. Now you have to wait. You know what my second question is?
I'm afraid to ask.
Give me a parting metaphor.
Well, then I can do the 2 in 1.
Yes, that's why.
My wife was born in Toronto. She has lived within 3 miles of the same place her whole life. And she's been blessed that when I was traveling a lot, I took her a lot of different places. You know, we went to Colorado, Florida, Australia, Italy, and Ireland, and we went to Switzerland. And we were staying actually in Prevesson, France, just across from Geneva. And one day we went to Negev with her brother, and we walked up this wonderful snow-covered mountainside where people were accustomed to the cold, as we were living in Canada. And we took our jackets off, and the sun was beating down. And even though it was such a cold temperature, we thoroughly enjoyed the walk. And when we reached a spot that her brother had determined we would look, the mountains all around us, he reached into his backpack and he took out 2 items that made it special. One was a bottle of Veuve Clicquot champagne, the Widow Clicquot, my favorite. He popped this open and he handed out plastic cups, Molson Canadian beer cups. And we drank Veuve Clicquot champagne from Canadian beer cups at Negev. And that memory felt like an accomplishment, and does to this day. It was my wife's 50th birthday, and I'm hard pressed to explain why it was an accomplishment. I have no idea, but to me, it felt like we had done something magnificent.
thank you, Mike Mandel. It was a pleasure talking to you. It is an honor that I met you, and you are enriching my life.
Bless you, my friend. We somehow crossed the line at one point, and we became friends, distant friends. But Chris and I always think fondly of your visit to Toronto, taking the bell from the class back to Africa with you, and sending that beautiful photograph that's in my computer still. And I'll come back on. Let's do this again. Let's figure out what you want to talk about next time. Love to talk to you again.
Well, so for today, it's good
night.
night.